What's good, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Halftime Show with your boy Courtlandt Griffin. Tonight is a very special edition, the WNBA edition, by the way. WNBA season is coming to a close here shortly. We're in the playoffs now. Only four teams remain. We're now in the semifinals with Seattle and Las Vegas duking it out in the West, and with Chicago and Connecticut duking it out in the East. But it wouldn't be a very good episode if I didn't have a very special guest. And I got a guy who's as good a WNBA analyst as I've ever heard and seen. My man's from the sports arena, Eric Wilson. What's good, boss?
My brother, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate being a part of the halftime show, man. What's good with you?
Man, nothing much. I appreciate you for coming and joining us for this WNBA edition of the halftime show.
Hey, listen, man. Courtlandt, anytime I get a chance to talk about the reigning, defending, undisputed 2021 WNBA World Champion Chicago Sky, bruh, I'm in there like swimwear. Let's do this.
Oh yeah, for sure. So of course, as we do it here, I just want Eric, can you tell the people about yourself and what you do? You know what I'm saying, your journey through sports media and everything, and then we'll get started here.
Sure. So, my journey actually started back in 2009. I was given the opportunity to be a part of an AM radio station. I jumped in with a couple of guys and a young woman, and we kind of springboarded into the whole podcast space in 2010. This is when the podcasting space was like truly brand new, and some people even called it a dirty word. So, took a couple years off to kind of figure out, what direction I wanted to go. Kind of got started back up in 2015, and since then through working with different people in different organizations, kind of found and honed in on my sports arena. And from there it's just been a role. I can tell you, being a part of the Sideline Sports Network family over the last 2 years, we have really grown. And a huge shout out to my co-host of the sports arena, Ray Lynn, for kind of keeping us moving and going. I've got my Queen of Hoops, Megan Price, another WNBA true fan and also media pundit, but she's got her own show going on. My guy Mike, and I mean, y'all know, if you've watched the halftime show, I'm sure he's had the big guard Ty Ray in here. But our collective group on the sports arena is just about, it's that family dynamic. We sitting around the kitchen table having that conversation, much like we did, Courtlandt, at the Black Sport Business Symposium.
Sure.
But the show is live every Monday and Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on Facebook and all the other social media facets. Got our own website, thesportsarena1.com, and we're doing a lot of good work. So,
And speaking of the Black Business Sports Business Symposium, I had corresponded with Eric multiple times over social media between other people and other things, and then meeting this brother in person was completely different. Had never met this man in person before that fateful weekend. But he dug in my butt, man, as far as like getting, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, he was like, you are way too talented to not have a show. Much like my first guest, Danny, more my second guest, I should say, Danny Thompson, and also Raylan, they were all there. And the great thing about being in sports media is not just being able to talk about sports, but also having a band of brothers around you that can lift you up. Because honestly, the halftime show wouldn't exist if them brothers didn't pull me to the side and say, "Hey, you after this weekend, there is no excuse." Like,
yeah. I you know what, and I'll echo that same sentiment, man. It was something about all of us getting together, a lot of us for the first time, having that experience. It was like family came together, and just to listen to you talk and to hear to give your analysis on certain situations, to give your thoughts and your true conviction. You were genuine about it. Let's call a spade a spade. You can find a fool anywhere, but when someone actually has it within them to not only speak their truth but also believe it, that's why I was like, bro, there's no way. I don't care if you got to jump on the sports arena. I don't care if you got to do say what, say it again. Your voice needed to be heard. You a young brother. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I told Mike Patton when I was talking to him. You have the clutch gene, the it factor to be able, and you've been an athlete, so you know what I'm talking about. To actually come into your own and speak about it, not just from an outsider's perspective, which real talk, that's what I am. I'm a fan. Did I play sports as a child? Yes, but never on the collegiate or the professional level. So I am a fan. I am a media guy. But you, sir, doing it at the levels that you have done it at, you know the inner workings. And that's where I feel this quote new media is coming from. It's those gentlemen like you who have been in the trenches and who can provide that behind the curtain insight into the mental, the physical, the emotional toll that an athlete goes through.
For sure. Hey man, I appreciate it. Again, it's always great to have people that you're close with, you know what I'm saying, to give there. But you know what I mean, you know what we're here for. We're here for WNBA basketball. So speaking of, we're gonna dive into our halftime adjustments. And the first one is, man, they finally have announced we've gotten the end of year superlative awards. The big 6 or 7 awards that are given out at the end of every season. So the MVP, we have one person that, like one team that pretty much ran, had the run of the table on the awards, which is Las Vegas Aces, which in my opinion was not surprising. They were pretty much consistent throughout the entire season. Becky Hammon has come in and showed she has the chops. She wasn't just a token female on the NBA side, but she actually knew the X's and O's, which those of us who know of Becky Hammon and knew who she was with the San Antonio Spurs, we knew that she would come in and have immediate success. But for those that didn't know her, she is now cemented in history now as not only being a first-year coach who could possibly make it to the WNBA Finals in her first season, but also winning the Coach of the Year. How do you feel about her?
So here's the thing that I think some people may forget is that Becky Hammon played in the WNBA. Okay. So I think a lot of it was her coming home. And she had mentioned that in one of her press conferences prior to the season starting. This was a woman who averaged for her career from 1999 to 2014, she averaged 13 points. She played an average of, 28 minutes a game. So Becky Hammon was someone who not only understood the game of basketball, but more importantly, understood the WNBA. There was so much excitement for her to come back because the WNBA is evolving and moving at such a rapid pace. They needed a coach. They needed someone to kind of hitch their saddle to, if you will. And she was just that person. Now, granted, there were many other well-deserving female coaches out there who I think could have fit that role. But when you bring her in, and this is a shout out to Mark Davis. Mark Davis, the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders and the Las Vegas Aces, he was like, we have to move in this direction.
For
And
sure.
she is the one who's going to propel us. Think about it like this. In Vegas, what do you have right now as far as sports? You have the Golden Knights, a hockey team that has been to the Stanley Cup Finals. You have the Las Vegas Raiders, a team now led by, Josh McDaniels, who we know to be an offensive guru when he has time in New England. You've
Right.
got Derek Carr. You've got a top wide receiver in Devontae Adams. And now you have the Las Vegas Aces with Becky Hammon, Asia Wilson, and that entire crew. And so it's one of those things where Las Vegas, we know it to be the entertainment or one of the top entertainment capitals of the world. More sports now are starting to integrate themselves into professional sports or integrating themselves into this mix. It's only going to elevate the success of the WNBA when you have owners like Mark Davis and coaches like Becky Hammon
For
who
sure.
are going to continually just be out there and promote and integrate and just basically shove it in your face.
For
You
sure.
gonna love or hate the WNBA, but you're gonna respect what these women do. You're gonna respect this organization, and you're gonna, at some point, you're going to make the investment.
For sure. Speaking of though, she also coached, like I said, one of the best teams, if not arguably the Eric would say different, but the best to me the best team in the in the Las Vegas Aces, that of which whose leader and superstar Asia Wilson took home not only the MVP but the Defensive Player of the Year. Now this is where I have a difference in opinion.
Okay.
I did, if you check out my article on the mid-season awards, I did have Asia Wilson taking home the Defensive Player of the Year award. It's she's been that. She adopted that Becky Hammon, San Antonio Spurs style Tim Duncan role. I firmly believe that like she bought into, not that she's never ever been a bad defender. I think she just bought into being the defensive anchor for the Aces this particular season, which we now see culminated in a Defensive Player of the Year award, an award which has been dominated by one Sylvia Fowles, who is now retiring. You
I'm gonna
know,
miss her,
which
man.
I
I'm
said
I'm gonna
here,
miss Sil.
the
I,
promo of her hanging her jersey up was bittersweet. It was like,
yes.
man, after all she's given to the W, she's finally, riding off into the sunset. And I don't think this is the last we're going to see of her. But Asia also won the MVP. Now, I feel like her teammate, Kelsey Plum, deserved to win the MVP. But that was just me.
Nah, see,
That was
Kelsey.
just me.
I
I'm a
think Kelsey's.
guard-oriented person.
I think Kelsey's getting a lot of. She's her stock is on the rise, but
Right.
I think a lot of it stems from the fact that Tom Brady, the GOAT of football, in a lot of people's opinion, took an interest in her, and they had their interaction, and so it was she done hitched herself to that, and
Right.
she's running with that. I take nothing away from Kelsey. Nothing. She is a very talented, very skillful individual playing on a great team. Okay. But I just feel like Asia is the best analogy I can give you is taking it back to what we talked about previously with the Black Sport Business Symposium. It is people who are finding those diamonds in the rough and letting them know, no, you got something.
Mm.
And we want you to showcase who you are. Whether you do it with us or whether you do it on your own, the world needs to see you. And that's who Asia Wilson is. Do I have a problem with Asia winning MVP of the season? No. Do I have a problem with it? Do I have a problem with her winning Defensive Player of the Year? Not at all. Asia Wilson has basically, once Liz Cambage left and went to Los Angeles, Asia already knew it's my time. I have to be the one to dominate this team. Plus, she bought into, as you said, she bought into whatever Becky Hammon was selling. Okay. But again, these women right now in the WNBA are standing on the shoulders of women such as Becky Hammon, women such as Rebecca Lobo, Cheryl
Mhm.
Swoops, you know what
Yep.
I'm saying? Maya Moore, and many others. So they understand the task that lay before them. But again, it's that combination. You pair the right coach with the right players,
Mhm.
and look what happens. They tied for the best record in the entire WNBA. They have the second best home record in the WNBA. They finished the number one seed, which is why now they are playing against the Seattle Storm. And, this is Sue Bird's swan song. So, Sue, Breonna Stewart, Jewel Lloyd, Gabby Williams, they're going to give it they all to
Which is
try and get Sue to the NBA Finals.
which we're
The
going to get
road,
to later on.
right. The roadblock is Asia Wilson. The roadblock is Kelsey Plum.
For sure.
So we'll see what happens.
Um, so speaking of we're gonna keep it within the Las Vegas Aces team for right now.
Sure.
The most improved player, Jackie Young, who's also an Aces player. And what's crazy to me is, and a lot of people, they might not feel the same way, but you know me, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say and back it up if you want to. This team is very reminiscent of the old school Spurs. If I can make that parallel, where they had a player coming off the bench like a Manu Ginobili, which to me is like, you can name one of two players, Jackie Young to me, or either Chelsea Gray, who are both very good players to me, in my opinion. Neither one can say you can put on another team and say they won't be stars. Chelsea Gray has been that on another team with the Sparks before, so we've seen that happen. But Jackie Young is now, I think she's emerging as one of those players whose stock, like you said, with Kelsey Plum, is going to rise within the next couple of years. But this is a very reminiscent team of that. They have a guard who can score and do multiple things in Kelsey Plum. You have the defensive anchor, model of consistency in Asia Wilson. Did you have an issue with Jackie Young being named the MIP, or did you have another player that may have deserved some consideration in that award?
Most improved player, there are so many. So I think when you get right down to it, I think Jackie Young is deserving of it. This is a young woman who her minutes increased every single year from 2019 until now. She did 22 and a half, averaged 22 and a half minutes. Then she did 25. Then she did 31. This year she's doing 33 minutes a game. It's a 40-minute game. And she's playing 95% of the time. She's on the court. She does not come off.
She's
When
what
you're
they would consider a pseudo starter.
Yeah. When your 3-point percentage jumps up from 25% last year in 2021 to 43.1%, that speaks to what you were doing in the offseason to prepare yourself for
Right.
this season, knowing what you were walking into. Your defensive and offensive rebounds basically have, well, your defensive rebounds have been, she's averaging 3 a game. Okay.
Right.
When I look at this, and her turnovers have actually decreased as well from a 1.6 to a 1.3. Now, that might not be much to a lot of people,
Right.
but when you look at the total makeup of improved player, someone who has gone out and done the work, put in the time, put in the energy in the off season to better herself on a physical level and also the mental level. She is someone who, yes, like I said, there are many other deserving players. And of course, I'm biased, of course. I thought that Azure Stevens for the Chicago Sky is someone who, in my opinion, should have had either most improved or sixth woman of the year. And I know we'll get to that.
Right.
Um, but I understand the reasoning behind why Jackie Young was given that award.
All right. And then so we're gonna go take a trip to another playoff team in Connecticut with not Jackie, but Brianna Jones taking home the Sixth Woman of the Year award.
Yeah, that
Um,
I have a problem with that one. Not gonna lie to you, I have a problem with that one.
so go ahead. Go ahead. What are your
So
qualms with it?
when I look at the sixth woman of the year, and because I do follow primarily the Chicago Sky,
Hmm.
I have seen the maturation. I don't know what the female equivalent of that is, but I've seen the growth and maturity in Azure Stevens from her injury that she had when she was in the bubble in 2020 till now. How she's been more of a vocal leader, how she has gone from being a starter to being a sixth person, sixth woman coming off the bench.
Right.
You know what I mean? She adds the depth, she adds the length. Plus, she has the ability to shoot from pretty much anywhere. Now, will Z get down low with you and bang around with some people? If she has to, she will. But don't get it twisted. She will also be the same woman that if you dare her to shoot from beyond the arc and she at the top of the key, I'm telling you right now, you done made a mistake. You done messed up. The transition that she goes through as far as making her reads, knowing where to be, playing alongside Candace Parker and Kalia Copper, that dynamic is speaking to why she, in my opinion, should be, because of her growth, because of her ability to come off the bench, which I know a lot of these women have to do sometimes,
Right.
but a lot of times you get into that space of why does this person why is this person a starter and I'm not? Let me be very clear about it. The 144 women who play in the WNBA could all be starters. The majority of them could, because there is so much other talent out there that isn't being picked up by the WNBA
There's
teams
at
because
least
they only
5
have,
teams worth of players that are sitting at home right now.
yeah, exactly. So I say that all to say I'm biased with regards to Z because I've seen her growth over the last 3 years. Now, you know what? Those who made the decision, guess what? That's great. But I know we're going to talk about this here in a minute. But when we get to that series, I'm glad that you brought this up tonight because I think it's something that people don't focus on. And that is having both Z and Bree going up against each other. That matchup is one that people need to pay attention to.
For sure. Now for me with the most improved player, mid-season I had it as Natasha Cloud. I kind of felt like Natasha Cloud
Okay.
had put forth the effort to say, you know what? I've been one of the more notable faces of the W, but the on-court presence hasn't always been there.
Right.
This year I felt like she kind of grew up
Okay.
and became that player. It kind of tapered off near the back end of the year, which is a given. But I just kind of I feel like next year she may stake her claim as one of the prominent not only faces but talents as well in the W. But I don't have an issue with it. I had Kennedy Carter as the runner-up in midseason. I kind of felt like she had played consistently throughout the year as well. But again, I don't have a problem with Stevenson or Brianna Jones. Again, like you said, there's so many players that are so talented that are sitting on benches in the WNBA. At this point, it's not like the NBA where you can say, man, well, this guy was actually better. Or, man,
Right.
this guy deserved to be, the sixth player of the year. And how did this guy get it? At this point, it's like anybody that you name is probably good enough to win the award, if not good enough to be a starter and probably be considered for one of the bigger awards in the NBA. I mean, WNBA. So again, I don't have a problem with Z being mentioned by you because Chicago has been consistent. They are a juggernaut in the W. And she has also been a very, like you said, she's a very key part to that machine that Chicago has over there.
Yeah.
So speaking of the playoffs, we are in the semifinals, but of course, the first round is past and gone. 4 teams are at home after being in the WNBA playoffs. That being New York, Phoenix, Dallas, and the Washington Mystics, which we just got done talking about. Which of those 4 teams, Eric, do you see being the best of the rest?
Of the 4 teams that got eliminated, it's very disheartening that neither Brittany Griner or Diana Taurasi played in the playoffs, because I feel their impact would have been felt had they been able to play. And as I will continually say, whether it be here or any other show that I do, Brittany Griner needs to come home. She needs to be freed and she needs to come home. That being said, of the 4 teams, I would say the Dallas Wings. I feel the Dallas Wings under Vicky Johnson are just they're right there. It's like that team that's just, once they break the glass ceiling and get to the next round of the playoffs, people need to stand up and pay attention. But because last year in the single elimination against Chicago, they were ousted, and then this year in the first round of the postseason, even though it was a best of 3 and they forced a game 3, they were ousted. So it's just one of those things where I think out of the 4, Vicky Johnson she has this team so committed and so on the rise, taking nothing away from, Coach T in Washington, taking nothing away from Sandy Brondello, who was originally in Phoenix, now in New York,
Right.
but she dealt with injuries during this whole entire season. And then what Vanessa Nygaard, the head coach of the Mercury, had to endure, not having BG, losing, DT at the end of the season, and then there were, Skylar Diggins Smith. All of a sudden, the last 4 games, she didn't play, and then she was gone the rest of the season.
Right.
You were relying on a Sophie Cunningham, a Diamond DeShields, a Shea Petty. You were dealing on your complementary pieces to kind of do something that had not really been asked of them all season long. It was a tall task, but Vicky Johnson, just with Satu, Arike, having those women just, again, buying into what Vicky is selling. I'm actually nervous. I'll be very real with you. When they finally break and they get over that hump out of the first round,
It's gonna be crazy.
Dallas is going to be a team that we are going to be talking about.
And the scary thing is they're so long on the back end. They're
Right.
so long on the back end. Awak Kuyer, like beginning of the year, looked like a monster, like like fast breaks, stealing the ball off of. I think the play that I saw that really put her, because I interviewed her when she was drafted on draft night, and she's such a sweet energy. Like she's such a quiet, soft-spoken, sweet energy. But her competitor on the court is a completely different monster. The stat, not the stat, but the play that I saw, she jumped the pass in the passing route, pushes it down court, gets it on the fast break, and two-hand dunks it on the other end. Like it was like, whoa, okay. Like this is what we doing in the W now. Like,
Yes.
you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? like we fast break dunking now. Like this is crazy, but that's why I'm saying like Dallas is so scary with the length. They're built almost like what Las Vegas had. And I'm sorry, I'm starting to sound like a Las Vegas fan, but they're kind of built like what they had. Like they had when they had Liz Cambage, Asia Wilson, and all that length on that back end. That's kind of how they're built. They got length and mobility and youth and scoring at every single level. And like you said, once they break that glass ceiling and
once they get to that second round, I'm telling you, Courtlandt.
It's gonna be scary. I don't think it's a team really, because Chicago is as good as Chicago is in the East, and as good as other teams in the East are that are coming up. Chicago is right now. I mean, the Vanderquigs are getting older. They're not going to be around forever, but the way they play and the consistency that the Vanderquigs have always had, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of hard to see them even being gone within the
Let's
next
not.
couple of years.
Can we not talk about that? Because I'm just saying, I'm starting to get a tear because
Yeah, man. But
listen, at the end of last season, when everything was up in the air and there was a question mark, I'm sure you saw on social media just the outpour of, okay,
oh
one
yeah,
more year. Give us one more year, please. And
sure.
I'll never forget. I'm not sure if it was Megan or if it was someone who sent me the tweet saying that they were back for one more year. I mean, I was doing backflips and cartwheels because I was like, yes, I got one more of the floor general and the 3-point champion. The Vanderquigs are near and dear to my heart, But one thing I will say about Dallas, there is one player who people need to, and I think she definitely made a name for herself this season, and that's Marina Mabry.
Yes.
That young woman out of Notre Dame, let me tell you, she is 5'11", 170, but she is all powerful and she takes no prisoners. I thought the center, Tierra McCown, was going to be someone
Mhm.
that people needed to recognize from Mississippi State. No. Marina Mabry
Is a beast.
is just I very rarely say I want a player from another team to come to Chicago. If you pair her with Kalia Copper
Oh
on
my
the
God.
same squad, you don't even come down low. Don't,
Unfair.
just
Yeah,
just
unfair.
don't do it.
Unfair.
Don't even do it. It's
But
over.
I do have a I do have a contention here though.
Okay,
And call this some bias, call this some,
that's fine.
but after covering them for a year, I was a Sparks fan. I was a heavy Sparks fan.
Okay,
That stemmed from being a Lakers fan and other things, but I was a heavy Sparks fan. I was a big Taya Cooper stan. You know what I mean? I thought she was talented. Unfortunately, she is not on the roster right now, but that could change. Next year. But after covering the New York Liberty for a season, they grew on me. Me and like Sammy Whitcomb, it was after a particular game. She went off like 4 or 5 threes. I tweeted. I was live at that time. I was live tweeting the games, and she liked the tweet. And we've actually become very good. Like we tweet back and forth, and she's a very sweet person. I built a rapport with her and all the other ladies that were there. That team to me, after what Coach Walt left there, the mentality, the defensive mentality, but Naja Laney and those ladies that are there, Brandy Brondillo has brought a different level. It seemed like she, and I understand it's it was a stark coaching change. It was literally one guy's coming out and Brandy's coming in.
Sandy.
Sandy, I'm sorry,
It's all
Sandy.
good.
I'm thinking Bet Naja and then, but
I know. I got you. I got you.
Sandy's coming in, and I said it when she was hired. I said Sabrina Ionescu is going to have a explosion. You're going to actually see what she can do as a player. And lo and behold, this year she came up. Like, not that she's ever been a bad player, but she showed a different level of that monster, that Mamba mentality that she models her game after.
Right.
She showed a different level of that this year, and that to me, that team, not based off of record, not based off of on-court production, but just like you said with Dallas, once they break through, watch out. Once New York gets it together with everything that they have, Sammy Whitcomb, Ionescu, Betnaja Laney, Natasha Howard,
Dee Richards, Steph
Dee
Dawson. Yeah.
Richards, and then everyone else that just what is her name? I can't. They just drafted her last year, and I cannot remember her name. Oh man, this is gonna bother me. I
We'll
can't
get
remember,
back.
her name,
I
but
got you.
she's a small forward. Or their power forward, I should say. once all those young ladies mature and get, find their rhythm and footing in the league, it's going to get scary. So we got that's two Eastern teams for y'all WNBA fans to watch out for within the next couple of years, New York and Dallas. I think Dallas is much closer to being a championship contender than New York, but New York is going to be right there.
Oh,
And
you're talking about Marine Johannes.
no, I got it now. Michaela Ionway.
Oh, yes, from
Yeah.
UCLA. Yes,
Yes.
okay.
She
But
came
I'm
in
telling you,
last year as a
Marine
rookie.
Johannes, she showed up in the
She
postseason.
did. She did. And that's why I say, like, for all the WNBA fans, it is an honor. We just celebrated 25 years last year.
Hmm.
It's an honor to see New York as one of the flagship teams, one of the original 12 of this league, be back in the playoffs and start to show the promise again. And that's always I think that's always a great thing. It's like, it's like when New York and the late, like, Lakers and Knicks are winning. You know what I mean? It's great for NBA basketball. When Boston is winning, it's great for NBA basketball.
Yes.
When New York and those flagship teams, the LA Sparks of the world, when those flagship teams are winning, it's great for the brand of the W.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like, so and this is not the sleep on the Washington Mystics, who are a team that came on greatly this year.
Well, that's because Deladon was healthy.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that team, led by Coach Mike T, that team's going to go as far as she goes.
yes.
And so, unfortunately, I don't know how much longer she is for the W. I am going to miss her, but I feel that a lot of people, they embrace her and they want her to be successful. You know how we have those players who are like,
You root
man,
for.
why you on this team? Like, why can't you go here and get yourself a
Yeah,
ring? But Deladon, very positive. I've spoken to her a few times in Zoom chat rooms, and just her level of commitment to the game is something that when it's gone, I think it's one of those things that people are going to miss.
for sure. And she's another one of those that she's of a dying breed right now. She's that old guard that is getting phased out. And if you are a fan of the WNBA, it's a group of players that you hate to see, that they have a sense of more immortality surrounding them. Sylvia Fowles was that. Sue Bird is that. Diana Taurasi is that. These different players, Tina Charles, the teams and players that you have seen since almost the beginning of the WNBA and such, because it's 25 years and I'm 29,
Right.
but I've been watching the W since I was 14, 15. So for me, these are players that I've watched, and you've seen them come up, win championships, win awards, and do countless things in this league. And now that era is now getting phased out, and now you're getting the newer era, the Renee Howards, the Kalia Coppers, the Sabrina Ionescu's, the Benija Laney's, and those that are coming up in the world as well, in the W as well. So, like, it's just a bittersweet feeling to know that the Elena Deladons, those players are ending, like, they're coming to the tail end of a career, and you hate to see them go, but you know that what they've left is a footprint and a blueprint for future generations to follow. And what they've done is not to be scoffed at. They've put women's basketball on the map, and it's only
They've kept it on the map, and it's going to continually excel because the two names that people are going to start paying attention to, Paige Buchers and also Aaliyah Boston,
yes.
are going to be the next, if you will. They're going to fall in with with the Sabrinas, with the Kalias, with the Benija Laneys. Yeah, it's
Paige
going to.
Buchers and Sabrina Ionescu, depending on if I don't think they're going to ever play for the same team, but it would be nice to see. Call me a stand there, but it would be
Hey,
nice to see.
anything is possible, especially
But
how these teams are, and we're hoping for expansion in the next couple of years. We get to see a couple more teams, and we get to see a lot more talent come into the W.
but yeah, Paige Buchers and Sabrina Ionescu, if they play for separate teams, that's going to be a matchup to
Oh
watch.
yes,
They
of
play
course.
very similar styles, and that is going to be a very good matchup. Now, before we get into our main topics, of course, Eric has mentioned it on his show. I have not mentioned it on my show, but of course we know we cannot talk about the WNBA without talking about what is going on with Brittany Griner. She needs to be brought home. This is something that needs to happen. It is not a should happen. It is not a we want it to happen. It is a needs to happen. And then just from the bottom of my heart, I just want her, if her family watches this show or even catches a glimpse of this clip somewhere along the airways. We do stand with you. The halftime show, Courtlandt Griffin does stand with you guys. Prayers goes out to them. Before we start our main, we're just gonna have a moment of silence for Brittany Griner. All right. So just again, man, like if y'all can, man, flood the airways, man, flood social media and just let that her family know, her people know, and let everyone know that, people want to see her home. This is not something that it's just, we as media members or anyone says because we, want to get views or anything. These are people. She's a person. She's an American citizen. But she's also a great human being. If you've ever talked to her, if you've ever seen her talk, she's a ray of light that needs support. She's going through a rough time. Things are not getting any easier. Again, we just want to see her come home. Any comments on that, Eric? Anything that
Man, I could spend the next hour talking to you about Brittany Griner, man. And again, I've echoed it on my show. And again, I don't do it for clickbait. I don't do it for any other reason than to simply say this young woman needs to be home with her wife, her family. She does great charity work in the Phoenix, Arizona community. And I get it. We all make mistakes, but I do not feel that the punishment is deserving of the crime. And every political person in power, I think, needs to unite. If you unite for nothing else, which we know there's always going to be division, they need to figure out how to get this young woman home because it's a travesty. It's ridiculous. We have gone almost 200 days, and Brittany Griner is still sitting in a jail cell in Russia over a vape cartridge. And I get it. The rules of Russia are completely different. I understand that when you go somewhere outside of the United States, even if you go to a different state, sometimes you may not know the rules and laws. It is your job to know the rules and the laws of the country, of the city, of the county, whatever, the town, whatever. I get all of that. But the argument that I will forever bring is I think this was leverage at a time that she just got caught up at the wrong time.
for sure.
And again, I echo everything that you said, and everybody at the sports arena feels the same way that I do and as you do. We want her home. It's not like you said, it's not a should. It just needs to happen.
For sure. And I appreciate that again, everybody. If all the people that watched the halftime show, I'm a friend of the show of the Sports Arena. I've been a guest on the Sports Arena, but I'm a personal friend of Eric, and I love all the people over at the Sports Arena. And again, those guys over there, if you want to hear people who are passionate about talking about women's basketball, passionate about what they feel about sports, go watch that show. That is a Monday, Wednesday, Friday show, I believe. Monday, Wednesday show. Okay.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday. Well,
but it's other shows. They have
you put me into Friday, man. Now people gonna be like, "Wait, I thought you was doing Friday." I'm like,
Yeah.
if I start doing a Friday show, Courtlandt, you coming on? I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely, man, y'all go check them out at the Sports Arena. But we're gonna get into these matchups, man. It's a storm in Vegas right now. It's a storm in Vegas right now. Seattle and Las Vegas are now locked in 2 games into the Western Conference semifinals. They are now tied 1-1. This was a hard fought. This is going to be a hard fought series, and it's going to be this 2 heavyweights going at it. 2 teams with 2 very strong low post players in Breanna Stewart and Asia Wilson, 2 very good guards, guard groups with Sue Bird and Jewel Lloyd on one side and Kelsey Plum, Chelsea Gray on that other side. Any like, do you, after watching games 1 and 2, or if you watch games 1 and 2, what was your takeaways from this particular semifinals matchup?
That this matchup is, like you said, it's a heavyweight bout. You know what I'm saying? You put Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson both dropping 30 points in game two, and one of them unfortunately had to be the loser. Now that was the Seattle Storm because they took game one in Vegas. And so it set the mindset, the precedent. And if we know anything about the coach of the year, Becky Hammond, she very quickly makes adjustments and very, very avidly lets her team know we will have anybody who we play against play our style of ball.
For
We
sure.
will not succumb to what they do. Now, listen, when you've got arguably one of the goats in Sue Bird, and you've got Brianna Stewart, and you've got Jewel Lloyd, like I said, you've got a down low presence in Gabby Williams. You know, again, we could sit here and go player by player and just stack rank them. But to watch this matchup, you call it a storm in Vegas. And I think that's very apropos because Sue Bird has played with one team her entire career. She has won championships. She's won MVPs. She's won gold medals. She is considered by a lot of people. Her and Diana Taurasi are the two goats of the WNBA, if you were to ask. You can't go wrong saying either one of them. Sue has made it very clear this is it for her as far as being on the court.
Right.
And so everybody in Seattle knows and understands they will probably get needed to be carted off that court before they don't give 125% for Sue Bird because they know what Sue has brought to the W. And on the flip side, again, we talked about it earlier. Asia Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Kelsey Plum, these young women are on a different level. They refuse to quit. They refuse to lose. Not saying that Seattle does or doesn't, but the mindset going into this, knowing that it's best of three right now. We back to nothing, nothing. Okay. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a best of three series. Yeah, Seattle took game one, Aces took game two, but see, now you're back in Seattle for two games.
Right.
And that arena is going to be sold out. If you've never been to a WNBA game, I say this to you, and I know you have, and I say this to all of your watchers and listeners and your audience. Go there. Go to a game. I don't care if it's playoffs, I don't care if it's regular season. Watch the electricity, excuse me, and just see what happens. I'm telling you, your mind, you're exposed to something that you never thought was even possible or that you never even could have conceived. And now we're in the playoffs where Seattle and Las Vegas are just like, okay, we're gonna take it up a notch and we're gonna show you what we're really about. I'm so excited for Sunday because I wish they weren't playing the games on the same day because I'm just stuck at home watching TV. Like my family already knows, hey, if the W's on, I'm watching it. It doesn't matter if it's Indiana, it doesn't matter if it's Chicago, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Connecticut, Washington. It doesn't matter. I'm watching because I know you gonna see something special, and that's what they give you. They give you something special.
For sure. I would say this: watching game one of this series, um, Las Vegas cannot afford to start as slow as they did. Um,
That can be said for everybody, but
yeah,
I know where you're going with this. So go
but
ahead.
Asia was, I think, like 1 of 6 to start. Kelsey Plum was 0 of 6 to start, and she started to pick it up in the second half. They were down 10 as many as they were down 10 as many as 11 in game one. They came back and got the lead, and Seattle does what they do best. They win games. Sue Bird, Stewie, Jewel Lloyd. Jewel Lloyd was on fire from three. She was shooting like, I think, like 55% from three in the first half. And then in game two, completely different game. Completely different game. Like you said, Becky just, Coach Hammond just, she you can tell she has that Popovich in her. She has that, I'm gonna flip a trash can, I'm gonna pull my best player aside, You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna point you out. I'm gonna put you on Jump Street, and I'm gonna light a fire under your ass, and I'm gonna get the best out of you because I need the best out of you because you were that good. I see how good you are. And Asia Wilson and Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum were completely different players in game two. I do think that they can have that and that can be consistent. But again, like I tell anybody, do not sleep on having a player like Sue Bird say this is her, like you said, her last hurrah, her last go around the sun, and don't think that Breonna Stewart and Jewel Lloyd and Tina Charles are not going to rally behind that woman and say, hey, we got you one last year, we're gonna get you another one this year. We're gonna put you out on top. I liked Vegas to win this series in a close one. I think it's gonna come down to the last game.
So you're saying it's going 5?
I think it's going 5.
Okay.
But something in me just says Seattle is going to rally behind Sue Bird, and they're going to take home another championship.
Listen,
it's something.
how it lines up. You are absolutely right because all Seattle had to do was win one in Vegas, and they did that. So now Seattle does have home field, if you will.
Right.
Which means Vegas has to go into hostile territory. And we talk about this in all sports. It doesn't matter whether it's WNBA, NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL. It doesn't matter. You got to go into somebody else's house and punch them in the mouth.
Right.
Okay. I feel like Vegas can do that. Vegas got a wake-up call because they were reminded that this is Sue Bird you're playing against. This is Tina Charles you're playing against. This is Breonna Stewart you're playing against. Okay. So if y'all just gonna let them come into your house, you found a way to respond, but now the question is, now you got to go there. What you gonna do?
Right.
What
And
you
let
gonna
me
do?
correct myself. I said they got them one last year. Let me correct myself. I'm sorry. Chicago won last year.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
In the comments, when somebody get in the comments and try to pack me up, let me correct myself. Chicago won last year. What I meant to say was they got one the year prior. So, this won't be Sue Bird's last. Again, Sue Bird is a champion. We know that. She knows that. And these are two teams that have been there, done that. Like, these are two teams that you can honestly say been there, done that.
Right.
And it's the opposite on the other side. So let's hop into this. But before I say I think it goes 5, I think it goes 5. Eric, what do you think this series ends?
Because my original finals pick, and I'm sticking with it, is Vegas, Chicago. I have said that from Jump Street. I have to stay with Vegas, and I say Vegas finds a way to take one in Seattle, much like Seattle did in Vegas. It's going to go 5 games, but I'll tell you what, mark it on your calendar. September 8th, that game 5 between Vegas and Seattle, should it come to that, Vegas is going to be rocking that night.
Oh, for sure.
And I feel Vegas is going to pull one out in a close one, much like they did in game 1. It's just that Vegas will win and move on to the WNBA finals.
For sure. So again, like I said, these are two been there, done that franchises. You know what I'm saying? That are known for winning, that are used to winning. But on the other side, in the Eastern Conference semifinals, we got the Connecticut Sun and the Chicago defending champion. Let me put some respect on that name. With the defending champion, Chicago Sky.
Yeah, I got something. I want to show you something really quick since you were kind enough to bring me on the show here. So for anyone who doesn't feel like I know what I'm talking about, which I have a few haters. Yeah, see this right here? Yeah. This is me and Coach Wade on the court when they won the championship. Okay, I just wanted to put that out there.
That's substantiation. That's what you call I got the chops. That's
shameless plug for myself. And then I'll do you one better. My floor general actually taking a moment to relax. Yeah. That's my floor general right there.
That's what y'all call cachet. That's what you call I've been here. I'm doing this. I've done this. That's why we bring these kind of guys on the show. My guy.
Anyhow, I just shameless plug. Whenever we talk about the Sky, listen, I was gonna get all decked out in Sky gear for you tonight, but I was like, man, no, let me.
You see, I got my orange and gray on. You got my.
I feel you.
I had to rep for the W. I gotta give me one of them hoodies though. That's what I gotta get.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you and me both.
So as I said before, the Connecticut Sun have not been to the finals, the WNBA finals recently. But the Chicago Sky have actually winning one last year. After the prodigal daughter returns to Chicago in CP3 this year, they're on another revenge. They're on a revenge tour, in my opinion, because people counted them out. I felt like people didn't really give the respect that Chicago deserves. People didn't see them being the team that they and this is just me. This is from what I've seen. But again, I didn't sleep on Chicago. I think Chicago's has since they got CP3 back, and that's Candace Parker, by the way, the real CP3, the one that actually wins championships. Uh, um, you know, like I feel like ever since she came back, or got to Chicago, they've been on a different level. Unfortunately, Diamond Shields, she's in Phoenix. She was in Phoenix this year, but last year, she was there. Kalia Copper, who has come into her own as a player, for sure. Playing with Candace Parker, playing with the Vander Quigs. Arguably, you can say outside of Candace Parker, she might be the best player on that team. It's scary. Jonquel Jones on the other side, and that crew on the other side, Brianna Jones, the Joneses, I should say.
No relation, by the way, but
No,
yeah.
yeah, no relation, which is weird, but like the Joneses on there, hanging with the Joneses, like I like to call them. Um, on the other side, this is another heavyweight bout. This is another, this isn't a team that Chicago can just go in and run over. They're there. They're a very good and very talented team.
It's funny
Um,
you say that because let me take you back for a moment. Let me share with your audience, I think, how this whole thing has kind of culminated to where we're at today. So last season, the Connecticut Sun, led by head coach Kurt Miller, Jonquel Jones, DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, and Brianna Jones, they were the number one seed. Did not lose at home from July until the end of the season. Dominated in the first round of the playoffs. Now it was, well, no, actually, they had a bye because they were the number one seed.
right.
Chicago was 16-16. Okay, a 500 team who had to win a single elimination game against Dallas, a single elimination game against the Minnesota Lynx to get to the Connecticut Sun. And what did they do game one last year? First game against the Connecticut Sun in the semifinal round,
Punched them
they
in the
take game one. That's when you understood what these two teams were going to be about. And then this season, they swept them 4-0. So think about it like this. And I love this analogy that I heard the other day. Okay. You got a brother, let's say you got a big brother, let's say you got a little brother.
Mhm.
Okay. You continually are never going to let your little brother get the best of you. But there's one time he going to do it. And he going to show up and show out at that moment and let you know you ain't going to mess with me no more.
For sure.
That is what exists between these two teams. Okay. Connecticut came in like, no, no, no. We're not just going to let this team continually just stomp a mud hole in us and walk it dry.
Right.
Okay. There have been some close outings, whether it be in Chicago or whether it be in Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. And Chicago had just found a way to get it done.
For sure.
But now, as Coach Miller likes to say, this is going to get messy. And I could not agree with him more. You are going to watch a physical series between the Connecticut Sun and the defending champ Chicago Sky, where the Chicago Sky, I feel, well, I know where they're different, is the fact that you have a bunch of players who know and understand not only do they have the experience, but they also have to get Connecticut to play their game. Connecticut is, and I don't like to use this term in a derogatory manner, so I please don't take it that way. But Connecticut is grimy. Connecticut's gonna
Oh
play
yeah.
physical ball with you. Okay, they're gonna let you know
Mhm.
they right there, and we saw that in game one when Kalia Copper and Courtney Williams are holding on to the ball for dear life. I said to somebody,
Man.
I said one of them would die before they let go of that ball.
And that's
Okay.
yeah, and that's the scary part about this series. And this is another series that is now tied 1-1.
Yes.
Connecticut took game one 68-63.
The
And then
lowest Chicago has scored this entire season, and
yep,
they lost by 5.
yep. And then Chicago came back and actually won handily.
Well, not necessarily, because yeah, in the first half, at the end of the first half, yes, they were up by 15, but in that second half, you begin to see that motor kind of taper. Now they held on to the lead. They did what they had to do. They won by 8, 85-77.
Right.
But at the same time, it's one of those where which team is going to lose the gas first? Who's going to run out of gas first?
Who's gonna
Because
slow down?
that's what's going to happen.
And that's what I was going to get to. It seems like to me because Jonquel Jones, I think she won. I want to say she won the MVP last year,
Hmm.
if I remember that right. She won the MVP last year. Jonquel is one of those players who's a unicorn. She's a big who can dribble, she can shoot, she can pass, she can rebound. She's a scary, she's a scary mixture of talent. And then of course, like you said, Dewana Bonner, and then they had a sharpshooter who can just masterful mid range at the guard position. And what made me upset was last year when she was in Atlanta, she completely single handedly beat New York from the mid range.
Right.
Wasn't and it was crazy. She took over that game. But again, like when you add those kind of pieces, you have a Brianna Jones on that other side. But then, like you said earlier, you got Kalia Copper.
Oh my
You got,
goodness! Look, North Philly, stand up. I'm gonna tell
yeah,
you right now.
you got Kalia Copper. You got the Vanderquiz. You got CP3. You got it's it's talent on both sides that you just can't deny. You just like you said, you're wanting to see who's going to show that chink in the armor first. Who's
Right.
going to slow down? Who's going to show the hands on the knees? Who's going to? And if you're an athlete, you know any coach tell you ain't no air down there. But you know you never on the field want to go and hunch over because if you're a competitor and as a person who is a competitor, as a lion on the field, and when I seen that, if I seen a DB hunched over, if I seen a catcher hunched over, oh, I got you. I got you. Who gonna like Ray Lewis used to say, who gonna blink first?
Right.
You know, so it's one of those situations right now. And like you said, this is gonna be a knockdown drag out series. I did have Chicago winning this 3-1, but at this point, it is that's kind of looking like it's gonna fight against me there. So Eric, what are your predictions? And keep it. Don't be a homer. Keep it
I
real.
listen. I'm gonna be very. I will. Part of me is gonna be a homer because that is my
Right.
team. But I will be realistic in what I've seen in the last 2 games. And again, who is going to be? Which team is going to run out of gas first? And that's what's going to happen. I know come Sunday. Now that you won last night.
Mhm.
Okay, so you take a day to travel, and then you've got 2 days to continually keep the momentum going. Now you back at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Beautiful arena, by the way. Love it.
Right.
Um, but again, that Connecticut crowd's going to be there. Why? Because they remember what happened last season.
Mhm.
So what I need Chicago to do is to just go in and, as they say, establish their identity on defense because they can put up the points. It doesn't matter whether it's Mieseman, doesn't matter whether it's Julie Alamon, doesn't matter if it's Adjure Stevens. I'm telling you, the name that people are finally starting to pay attention to, and mind you, Courtland, she's a rookie, Rebecca Gardner. Rebecca Gardner has no problem playing against Dewana Bonner. None whatsoever. She don't even care. She's like, put me against whomever, I'm going to do what I do. But it's going to come down to speed, it's going to come down to transition, and it's going to come down to disruption. Those are the 3 things that are going to find that you're going to see one of these 2 teams is going to expose the other in one of those 3 things, whether it be speed, transition, excuse me,
Mhm.
defense, disruption.
For
When
sure.
you see that happen, that's when the shift swings, and it's going to go in that direction. For Connecticut, they already know what they have to do because they did it in game 1. You have to stop the Vanderquigs. You cannot let Courtney be the floor general, and you cannot let Allie shoot from beyond the arc. They already know that going in. So they have to find a way to contain the 2 of them. Candace is going to do Candace. Kalia is going to be Kalia. Try and stop her if you want to. It don't matter. It's not gonna happen. Again, North Philly stand up. That's what she does. Okay.
For sure. And that's one of the things, um, you know, that it says a lot about these two teams. Like they're both well coached. They both know
Yes.
each other, like you said,
Yep.
and there's a history there. But you did speak to something that I want to talk about.
Okay.
There's been a very, very infectious brand of basketball that has been being played in the WNBA. Definitely within this past year, with the advent of last year, with the advent of the Commissioner's Cup, and then of course that seeing um, itself like in its second year, second iteration, coming this year, and then it's just been. It seems like more competitive basketball, more gritty form of basketball being played in W. And this playoffs, like you talked about, Kalia Copper fighting for the ball, the physical nature, the close games, the games that have you gripping the edge of your seat and saying who's going to win this game. Like it used to be, a couple of years ago where it was like you kind of knew who was coming in to win the game. But now it's like you don't know. The talent is so widespread. The talent is so great on all of these teams. Even the bottom team has a chance if you give them a chance to come in and win a game against one of the top teams. Is this the future of WNBA? Like, has the playoffs shown you the future of what we can see coming within the next couple of years for the WNBA?
I think it started in 2020 when they were down here in my backyard in Bradenton, Florida at the IMG Academy. Because here's the thing, you think about it. You as an athlete know this. You know when you play your best, when you've eliminated all the distractions, when the game slows down for you.
Yep.
I think that's what happened when they were down here in the, as they called it, the wubble. Um, because they had nothing else to do. It was you played a game, you had a day off. You played a game, you had a day off. You played a game, you had a day off. That was their life for 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where the world really got the exposure that the W had been missing. Was the W on TV prior to that? Yes. But we had to, as I've heard players say, we had to go through this app and that app, and if it was on the Ocho or ESPNU or whatever else. Okay. And it's still not to the point of where I think, and I'm sure you might agree, where I think it needs to be.
Yeah, no,
But
it's
the
definitely
but the W over the last 3 seasons has really grown from a we're just the little sister of the WNBA to no, we're on that same level, and here's why.
right.
And so, to answer your question directly, what we have seen over the last 3 seasons, and more specifically, what we've seen in these playoffs, is that the future? I do believe so. Those nail biters, people are starting to get more invested in the players. You're hearing about the players from the college level when they transition to the W, and you're beginning to pay attention, much like what we do with college male athletes.
Right.
Okay, we'll follow them from their college career, and if they get drafted to the NFL or the NBA, we're like, oh man, remember when he did this back at UNC, or remember when he did this at Duke, or when he did this at Temple, or wherever.
Right.
We're saying that now about the female athletes, the female basketball players.
For sure.
And so the future is definitely bright. It's coming down to the investments. It's coming down to those, owners and corporations who are taking a look at this maybe for the first time and realizing that they want their name attached to that product.
All right. And I agree completely. I think that, like I said, I was waiting for that as a WNBA fan and been now watching it for the better part of 14 years now. I was waiting for that. You know what I mean? Like that. All right, where's that brand of basketball that I know these ladies can play? Like, where's that college basketball kind of competitive nature that we saw? Now it's fine. I feel like it's fine. Like you said, the last 3 seasons finally catching up. The mid-season Commissioner's Cup that we've seen be very competitive the last 2 seasons.
You get $500,000, so yeah, you're gonna be
even to the All-Star game. Even to the All-Star game being more competitive. I think last year they did the Team USA versus the WNBA. And
That
then
was
this,
a great matchup, and
right,
to be there live in Vegas, Courtland, I'm going to tell you, next year, no matter where it is, you got to go because
for
the
sure,
I feel the entertainment value, the glitz, the glamour of the whole nine is something that it's one of those experiences you have to see as a
for sure.
fan and as someone who covers the W. Look, I'm gonna let you know, or if you get the emails, it don't matter. But next year, wherever the All-Star game is, man, be a part of it because
For
you
sure.
soak all that in, and to be around all that talent for those couple of days, it's
Sure.
amazing.
Oh yeah, and I loved it because last year I got to actually do the Zoom call for the All Star game and talking to CP3, talking to John Quill Jones, and talking to Eric K. Ogunbowale and those ladies, and just seeing them like and just seeing how they were excited win, lose or draw, they were excited about the product that they put on the court, and I
Right.
think that is something to be said. This is not a league where a guy like the NBA or the NFL where guys are just like, hey, well, it's been established for 100 plus years or 70 years or whatever, and I'm just a piece furthering furthering the already established brand. Now these ladies were excited about the product that they put on the court. They're just as invested in playing the game as they are as put in pushing that crest, that symbol of a woman shooting a hook shot. They're invested in that, and that says a lot to me. But I'm going to put you on the spot here because we're talking about the future of the WNBA and what is in the near future, the WNBA finals. So I know you said your prediction for the teams, but who do you feel like comes out on top of your prediction? If you can just give
Well,
your prediction and then
yeah, my prediction is very simple. Um, I had the privilege of interviewing Coach Wade prior to them winning Game 4 last year, and I asked him one simple question. I said, "When you are victorious, what is going to be the first thing you say to your team?" And he's like, "We're going to get another one." And that has stayed and resonated in my brain from when I heard it from him last year all the way till now and even beyond. So my finals prediction is again Sky and 4 against the Las Vegas Aces. They win their second championship back at the Wintrust Arena, Game 4 WNBA Finals.
so I have a different one. Same prediction, just different. So just a different winner. Vegas versus Chicago. I think Las Vegas under Becky Hammond. Those ladies, I think like you said under their coach, like Chicago under coach, and those guys and that staff over there, they want to get there. They're hungry. They got that taste. They want it. I think Asia Wilson and those guys and those ladies over there under Becky want it just as much as well. Their coach is the coach of the year. Asia is the MVP. They want it, and to me, I think it comes down. I think they. I think they go because it's a best of 7. I think they moved. Did they move to
No,
a best?
it's a best of 5. The
It's a best.
semifinals and the finals are a best of 5. If
Okay.
Vegas and Chicago are that matchup that you and I are both talking about,
Mhm.
1, 2, and 5 are in Vegas. Chicago gets the 2 in the middle, 3 and 4.
Okay. So it's still best of 5. Okay. So I don't think it's a sweep. I think it goes 5 games. I think it goes 5 games, and I think Las Vegas pulls out a nail biter to upset the defending champion Chicago Sky. It's nothing against Chicago.
I get it.
Again, it's going to be an entertaining finals this year. Regardless, I think it's going to be an entertaining finals. The WNBA does that very well. For some reason, they put on the most entertaining championship series
I
ever.
agree. I agree.
And I don't think you can. I don't think with the remaining 4 teams, even if it's Seattle, Connecticut, I don't think you can even argue with the product that they're going to put out there on the field. Because again, I mean on the court. Because again, seeing the young guard, like if you let's say the young generation, the John Quill Jones, Brianna Jones, in Connecticut, if it's Seattle versus Connecticut, and then having Sue Bird on a swan song come in and possibly win one and go out and then pass the torch like Tim Duncan did to LeBron James in 2007. Like he said, like this is your league. Thank you for letting us borrow it. If we can see a Sue Bird moment with John Quill or whatever, or even her handing it over to Stewie because Stewie is as big a name as any too. So
I'm not trying to take away from the Seattle Storm, but I do feel like in this offseason, once Sue leaves, I think Stewie is
Who's
going
gonna
to
go?
be taking her talent somewhere else. But that's a conversation for another time.
I wouldn't argue with her coming to New York Liberty. But
You might be on to something, my brother.
I thought she was gonna do it this past year. But yeah, man, like I love that. You know what I mean? That we are finally seeing the W not just live up to the potential, but realize the potential. And again, the finals is gonna, like you said, in September. We're gonna get that. It's gonna be fun. I will be watching it front row and center. Not be there, but of course, I will be eyes glued to whatever screen I'm playing it on. And if you are a WNBA fan, please. I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Um, this is the end of our show, but I'll say this before, and I'll say this is a WNBA edition. If you want to see the change in the WNBA, if you want to see these ladies realize and get paid more, if you want to see them have better travel, if you want to see them on television, please pay the $16, pay the $19, $20 for the W Pass on the WNBA app. It's 16. It's a one-time fee. You don't have to pay it every month. It's not a recurring charge. It's a one-time charge. You get every game of the WNBA. Buy a jersey, buy a hat, buy a sweatshirt. Go tweet the ladies. Share their highlights like you share like you share NBA highlights. Share their highlights like you share NFL highlights. Like tweet the hashtag WNBA Twitter. It doesn't take much to get a brand out there. The brand is not it's just as much to fans as it is to players. It's just as much to people that are the viewers, just as much as it's the coaches and the front office people. They have a great contingency in that front office with the commissioner and everybody, the coaches, the ladies that are pushing this brand. But we as fans, we as media, we have to do our part as well. We have to show these ladies we are supporting them. We have to show them that we are behind them. And we can't get on social media and on TV, on shows and on TV and on web shows and things and complain about the product and the injustice that these ladies are suffering with not being paid as much as they should be paid, with the travel situations, and not support and not go buy product and not go and push the product either. Like, we have to do our part as well. But again, this has been the halftime show. This is the closing remarks. And Eric, anything you want to close with?
Man, I think you really said it all. I mean, as far as the W goes, support, invest, be a part of it, because it's only going to get better. And, you don't want to be the person who got in after the fact, because then you're like, where have I been all this time? Well, you have the opportunity, so get there now. Again, Courtlandt, man, much love to you. I know I have to have you back on the show at some point, especially talking about your Tennessee Titans and that whole situation. But this has been truly an honor. I thank you so much. And anytime you want to join the sports arena, brother, just let me know. You're more than welcome.
Oh man, no problem, man. Eric, anyway, and again, you always welcome on here. The halftime show is always is a home away from home for you, and just like anybody else from our little network of Black brothers and sisters and people that we've met along the way, and people that we're going to accrue along the way. This is just the beginning for the halftime show. So again, y'all, thank you for joining this special WNBA edition of the halftime show. Is with your host Courtlandt Griffin, my special guest Eric Wilson. I'm the best in the nation. Peace.